What's going on my cute teas? I hope you guys are having an absolutely amazing day. Today I'm bringing you guys a new video. It's going to be one that is addressing a question that we get a lot. I'm new to Dead by Daylight. What killer should I start off with? Now, I want to phrase this in such a way that we're starting off with the most basic of I'm just picking up Dead by Daylight. I probably don't have any of the expansions. I haven't paid for any of the DLCs yet. What killer should I learn? Even if you include all of the killers though, I still think this is a really good killer to start with, specifically because even though their perks aren't the greatest to put on other killers, you're gonna get the base mechanics of killer down from this killer, and you can even apply that at a higher level and still get success. The killer that I'm talking about today is Wraith. Now, the reason Wraith works is because overall the kit is pretty simple. The difficulty says intermediate here, but what you're using from the power when you're using your Wailing Bell, very simple overall. When you're invisible, you can't hit survivors, but you're moving significantly faster, which allows you to get around the map. It allows you to identify where survivors are at and get an idea of how survivors are going to move. When you're visible, you're now moving as a base M1 killer, so you get a lot of the basics down. You can start using things like red stain, mind games, and stuff like that, doubling back on loops, but you can also play in a very aggressive way and go for your hit and run strats of appear, slap a survivor, go find a new one, slap that one, continue that pressure. You also get some really base perks that are great for teaching you how to play the game. Predator is great for teaching you how to, use scratch marks. Now it's something you're gonna have to adjust to if you're not using, but actually a really fun thing to have if you're just learning the game, if you're very base. Bloodhound, great for being able to see bloodstains a little bit better until you're used to looking for those bloodstains even without it. And Shadowborn is absolutely incredible if you're not used to the field of view. Now, there's something to be said for any of those perks becoming something you get used to and then having to break the habit of using, but honestly, it's a great way to start off in the game for just learning a really basic killer. The other things that you get out of Wraith are just an ability to use a lot of the basic perks, so you can get a lot of value out of Sloppy Butcher because he is basically an M1 killer. You can get a lot of value out of Bitter Murmur, and then people are probably gonna hate this, but you can get tons of value out of No One Escapes Death. So if you are, struggling to keep that pressure up and gens are being completed, you can get that Hex No Edit value at the end of the game and really start to snowball, so you can get a couple extra kills. It's gonna make up for some of the mistakes that you're probably going to make, and even I still make, having about 500 or 600 hours in the game at this point. I'm still relatively new to the game. You also get some really basic add-ons that are going to be both quality of life and really nice. Things like Soot, which is going to let you be able to just get more blood points. But then you're also getting things in the Ghost, which is going to be your terror radius and red stain remaining suppressed for 6 seconds, which is going to help you get those hits when survivors aren't necessarily sure which way you're going to come around a pallet. You can also do things like Hound so that you can get those blood marks without having to use Bloodhound if you have different perks you want to use. And then this one for Serpent, it allows you to uncloak whenever you're breaking a pallet. Using some different builds, you can make some pretty cool uses out of that. Bone Clapper, great for just making those mind games even stronger, jump scares become even more prevalent. Survivors popping off gens because they hear the sound of the bell. Really nice to use that. And then basic ones like Windstorm, which increases your move speed while you're cloaked, which are all going to be great. Reducing reappearance time and disappearance time are always great. Then your extra effects, whether it's blindness or you get into Blind Warrior, which is going to inflict that hemorrhage status. Maybe you don't need to use Sloppy Butcher as much. Windstorm at higher levels obviously adds more speed, so that's great too. And then you have even these All-Seeing ones, which are fantastic. All-Seeing Blood, probably one of the most broken add-ons in the game, because you just get wall hacks for 12 meters. Really incredible add-ons just at base to make build variety a thing, even if you're just really running this killer to kind of learn how to play the game. Absolutely fantastic. The mechanics, not only are they rather easy to learn, you uncloak, you go for your hit with that brief speed boost, you recloak, you find another survivor, or you continue your chase. Figuring out when you should continue or when you should pop off and go find a new survivor is pretty much the skill cap on Wraith. And behind that, there's also just identifying and figuring out where you want to go after an individual hit. And all of that is fantastic. It becomes really simple to kind of snowball that learning into a basic chase mindset killer or a basic hit and run killer. I do recommend, if you're newer to the game, learning how to chase, very important. As a basic M1 killer, as you guys could see before, 4.6 move speed is the base move speed here. So that does mean that you're getting just very basics. When you get into your your iridescent add-ons, which are significantly more rare. You can make your bell completely silent. It makes you lose your mind games with the bell, but it can be that little bit of a jump scare kind of thing. Or you go with your all-seeing, which is going to be being able to see where generators might be being progressed. So if you're not using something like barbecue and chili or thrilling tremors to see where survivors are, that's going to give you the value of knowing where you should be going next after a hook. When you recloak and you're looking around to see where survivors are, that's going to give you that value there. Overall, I just think Wraith is the most complete killer that can also play even against some more tough competition, better groups. So as you do learn the game, Wraith is just a fantastic killer to pick up. He's not the only one that I would recommend though, because I do strongly recommend that if you are looking to learn Dead by Daylight, you also learn how to play Trapper. At base, he's another one that is a free killer for you to pick up. The reason I like Trapper, especially with the mid-season patch that's coming up, he's going to get some new changes to his loadout so that some of these bag add-ons, which are normally pretty much mandatory, are going to be base. He's going to start with 2 extra traps. There's going to be consistently traps on the map, but what Trapper does behind and beyond everything else is he teaches you how to set up a 3-gen. Identify where your strong point in the map is, set up your network of traps around it, and patrol it, police it, and become the guardian of that zone. It is a super useful technique for playing at higher levels, is knowing where you're going to be strongest on the map and what chases you can and can't take. So for Trapper, similar to a lot of the other trap killers like Hag, for example, when he sets up in a zone, as a survivor tries to take you out of that zone, you need to know that, can I take this chase? Is he going to get something? Is he getting to shack before I've set up the shack? Is he getting to a loop that I'm not set up for and he's going to loop me for an extended period of time while they do another gen? All of those decisions are pieces you have to consider when you're playing killer, because you don't want to take too much time for any one chase, and Trapper does a great job of teaching that at a very early level. He also gives you 2 really good perks just to pick up early, those being Brutal Strength and Agitation. Agitation is one of my favorites just because you can combine it with things like Iron Grass to get people into the basement. You can combine it with things like Starstruck later on, or Mad Grit to give a little bit more of a surprise kind of thing that survivors and especially Swifts aren't going to expect. Swifts being Survive with Friends if you guys are new. The other thing is the variety of perks you can use to play both of those killers, Wraith and Trapper. I really think they both take 2 perks in general from other killers really, really well. You can use Barbecue and Chili really well with Wraith. You can use things like Corrupt Intervention really well with Trapper. You get a variety of builds that are accessible as you start buying and playing other killers. The final thing that I'm going to recommend is, if you do decide to pick up DLCs, the Cannibal and Hag I think are 2 of the best killers to pick up, specifically because of things like Hex Ruin and Barbecue and Chili. They're 2 of the most applicable perks to just about any killer. They're really, really strong. And in general, Barbecue and Chili just becomes one of those perks that if you get it, you start to run it on just about everything, because not only do you get the extra aura reading whenever you hook someone, which tells you, okay, I've hooked this person, I now know that I can go to this area because there's someone on a gen over here. You also get the extra blood points, which when you're starting off, super, super, super important. The reason all of this ends up stacking up really well is that if you can get more blood points, you can start leveling up your killers. As you can see, I have a bunch of killers that I still need to level up, despite having, about 500 hours, 600 or so hours in the game. The game takes a long time to grind through, and that certainly helps, especially if you're learning how to play killer. But definitely Wraith, definitely Trapper, 2 of the best killers to start. Wraith gives you great chase potential, and you learn how to chase as a basic killer with Wraith. And then Trapper gives you the opportunity to learn how to set up and guard your zones. A lot of people will tell you, Nurse, Spirit, potentially even Blight are 3 of the best killers in the game. The reason, and I do want to address this, the reason I would say those aren't the best killers to start with is because they don't really apply to other killers super well. You could learn how to play Nurse, become the best Nurse in the game, and absolutely body survivors, because she is, without a doubt, the best killer in the game, hands down. And that would be great. But if you learn how to play Nurse really, really well, you didn't learn how to play any other killer, because she plays in such a distinct and different way than any other killer because of the type of killer she is. Being able to teleport just makes her significantly different. Learning how to play Spirit, because of the way she plays, because of the way that she mind games, because of the way that she moves and her power works, she plays different than any other killer ever will. And then finally with Blight, because of his pinball mechanics and stuff like that, again, you could learn how to play him, become the best in the game at Blight, but that's not going to necessarily apply when you're playing Demogorgon or Pinhead or Trickster, and that's all really important. Overall, this game is incredible. It's really, really fun, and you can sink a ton of time into it and still feel like you have a ton to learn. Don't get overwhelmed. Take it one game at a time and learn to the best of your ability. It's super worth it. Apply the knowledge that you can, and if you're interested, stop by a stream, ask some questions. Whether that's me or another streamer, I can tell you straight up, the Dead by Daylight streaming community is one of the best in gaming for teaching people how to play and answering questions. Twitch.tv/SeveredSanity, we stream just about every day. I'm happy to answer your questions. If you like this video, consider dropping a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys want to see next. Thanks so much. Have an amazing day, and remember, until next time, stay insane.